to the Woodridge Public Library. Thank you for coming tonight. We have a presentation by a local cooking instructor, Andrea Pratt. She's offered pressure cooking classes, and now it's Instant Pot. So we're very excited to be on this cooking trend, and thank you for coming out tonight, Andrea.
Thank you, Patty. Well, thank you to all of you for being here tonight. I know we all have busy schedules, so I hope that you are able to find something helpful from this class and take something home with you that is useful. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself so you know who is talking in front of you tonight, and then we are going to cover the basics of the structure of an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker, an electric pressure cooker, and then we'll get into the recipes that we're making. So a little bit about myself. My name is Andrea Pratt. I grew up in Iowa. My mother is a home ec instructor. I grew up on a small family farm, and I learned a whole bunch about cooking from my grandparents and my mother about canning, preserving, bread making, and whatnot. Went to college, have degrees in agricultural and civil engineering, and did that career for many years. I have 4 small children at home, all boys. After the third one was born, I could no longer make sense of working and being a mother, and so I went home to be with them, and it took me about a week to go a little bit crazy. And I said to myself, what do I love? And that kind of has slowly evolved into this small little business that I have where I do cooking instructions. I am not a trained chef. What I try to do is make it real for real people. You will not get knife skills from me. In fact, sometimes I skip over the recipes a little bit too much, so if you have questions on those as we go along, please feel free to ask your questions and keep me on track. But I try to make the recipe something that is realistic and can be done in our real lives. So that's, I think, most of it. There is a sign-up sheet over there for my newsletter. In a perfect world, I would get that out once a month or 2, and lately it's been about twice a year. So if you want to know more about the other stuff that I do after you see this presentation, then feel free to put your name down. If you already accidentally put your name down and decide you want to take it off, go ahead and do that. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I also have my card over there, and I have a Facebook page which is on my card. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to take that. Okay, that's enough about me. So now about why you're really here, the Instant Pot. So we title this class Instant Pot, but it really could be any electric pressure cooker. I also do stovetop pressure cooking at home, so if you do that or have questions on that, I can answer questions on those, but we will mainly be talking about electric pressure cookers. How many of you have a pressure cooker, an electric pressure cooker already? And how many of you use it? Okay, so a few of you may have one and don't use it, and are some of you thinking about getting one and are not sure? Okay, so this is a great place to be. I do not sell any pressure cookers, so you're getting an unbiased, I love using them in my kitchen, but hopefully you'll come out of this with a feeling of whether or not this is a good appliance in your kitchen. So Instant Pot has a great brand name, and that's what we put on the title of these classes, but this will work with any electric pressure cooker. So if you find recipes online or wherever you're looking or in a cookbook that says Instant Pot approved and you have a different brand pressure cooker, never fear, those recipes are still good to go for your pressure cooker. They are called Instant Pot, but they are not by any means instant. So that is one of the things that I think a lot of people get frustrated with. They will say, oh, this recipe said it was going to take 6 minutes for chicken breast, and that is the cooking time, but there is time to heat up and time to cool down, as we will see, or release the pressure. So there's more time involved and some things don't actually cook quicker in the pressure cooker than they do the normal way. I do feel there are some advantages even when they don't cook quicker, and we'll talk about that. You may not need to stir, or you may have hard-boiled eggs that are more easy to peel in a pressure cooker, but maybe that doesn't save a lot of time. So your pressure cooker, your electric pressure cooker will have 3 main parts. So your base, which is where all the electricity is ran. Do not submerge this in water. Do not put water in this part. So this is where the heating element is, and this is where all the electricity is. And then your operating panel is on the front. And I'll just prep you, it's very entertaining to watch me trying to operate them in this class. So just bear with me when we get to that point. And then you have an insert. On most of the Instant Pots, they are stainless steel, and I have been very happy with the stainless steel inserts. I've heard they have some non-stick out there. I haven't seen them myself. And other models, if you like non-stick, you'll need to look into other companies' pressure cookers to find one, or look harder for Instant Pots. The nice part about this pot and on Instant Pot is that it has markings on the inside. So it has a marking for half full and for 2/3 full. Your pressure cooker works by having liquid in here under a sealed condition when you put the lid on, and that liquid is brought up to boiling. But when it's sealed, it boils at a higher temperature than it does when it's at atmospheric pressure. So when it comes up to pressure in your pot, the boiling point raises in your pot, thereby cooking your food more quickly. So that's kind of the basics of how it works. But if you fill your pot too full, you won't have any headspace at the top of the pot for the liquid particles to bounce around. It's a very technical physics term. So you can't fill it too full, or you won't have that headspace to bring it to pressure. And the halfway full is for beans, oatmeal, grains, and sometimes rice. You don't want to go higher than that halfway full point. All of those things have little particles in them, and they get foamy or whatever, and they need that extra space. The rest of the things you cook can be at 2/3 full. So that being said, we have a 6-quart pressure cooker right here. At 2/3 full, you only have a 4-quart capacity on your 6-quart pressure cooker. So that is a good size for most families of 4, some families of 2, and then sometimes a family of 6 can get away with this size pot. If you have a larger family, or you like to cook big things like bone-in, pot roast, or you like to do cakes, sometimes the 8-quart pressure cooker, which is this one right here, would be a better choice. At 8-quart at a 2/3 capacity, I don't know, something 6 something. So you have a higher capacity in here. So this is good for larger families and when you cook bigger things. But it does take more space in your kitchen. These things are not small, so you need to consider that if you're looking into buying one. And I have 2. I'm going to go to the lid. I am not going to skip around. Okay, so the other part of the pressure cooker is the lid. So the lid has a gasket in it. This is typically a silicone gasket nowadays. And it goes into a ring here around the edge. Make sure every time I put my pressure cooker lid on, you should make sure that that gasket is in there. If your gasket is not all the way around put in, or if it is sitting next to the sink from being washed, your cooker will not come to pressure, and it will just spew out steam, and you'll be like, why is it still doing that? Oh, the gasket's sitting over there. Not that that's ever happened in my house. So what I normally do is store it with that on there so I don't lose it or whatever. Or the kids take it and play frisbee with it. There is a release valve at the top, and it goes from the bottom to the top of the lid. So if you can pop off that black bobbly thing, and you can pop off, there's a cage that sits on it on the inside of the lid. So I usually wash this in the sink. I believe Instant Pot tells you can put it in the top of the dishwasher, but I always wash mine by hand. You can wash the lid in the sink, submerge it with soap. I usually take these two things off, and you want to make sure that that hole is clean. So when you look up at the light, you can see light through it, and then you know that it is clean. If it's clogged, you want to run a pipe cleaner or a wire through there. It's a teeny tiny hole, but you want to run something through there to clean that out so that you can see light through there. The two main reasons that your pressure cooker won't come to pressure is that that seal is not in correctly or that hole is clogged. So the main foods that clog that hole would be beans and rice, usually, maybe applesauce or some sort of grain like oatmeal, and particularly if you release the pressure by either letting the pot sit and wait until it comes down on its own, which should not cause that to clog. But if you force the pressure to release quickly by turning this to venting, that will cause more little particles to come out through the steam and thereby possibly causing that to clog. So let's talk about this knob thing again. It is your pressure release point. You can turn it to venting and you can turn it to sealing. So when you want it to come to pressure, you need to make sure that this guy is at sealing. If it is at venting, you will have lots of steam coming out of your pot, and again, you'll be asking why it isn't coming to pressure. So if it's making a lot of noise and there's steam coming out of it and you're trying to get it to come to pressure, that's a good sign that something needs to be wiggled or something. So that is always at sealing when you're cooking, when you want it to come to pressure. So that leads me into the downside of Instant Pot is that there are tons of models out on the market, and it is kind of hard to navigate all of them. I have two of the basic models, the entry-level models here. This is the Luxe, which is their entry-level model, so the 8-quart Luxe. The Luxe is about $80 to $100 on Amazon. You can find it sometimes in stores too. It only has one pressure setting, which is not necessarily a bad thing, so you can have high or low pressure. Most things in the electric pressure cooker are cooked on high pressure. Some egg recipes say to cook it on low pressure, but honestly, I've done some of those on high pressure and they were fine. So that's not necessarily a problem. It does not have a yogurt setting. If you think you want to make yogurt someday, or use it as a yogurt maker, this would not be your model. Beyond that, there's not a lot of significant differences. So it's a good entry-level one. And then this model is the Duo model, and that is probably their most popular model. And it's also kind of an entry level. It's the next step up from that one. And the Duo runs around $90 to $120 depending on the size. So price-wise, you can find these on Amazon. You can find them in Bed Bath & Beyond and Kohl's. You can find your 20% coupons, so you can get them almost anywhere nowadays. They have upgraded models. So when you go up models, some of those models will have extra features. And one of the nice features is when you go up the models, the lid, when it goes on automatically, will automatically go to the sealing mode, which is really nice, but not necessarily a big deal, because if you don't know the difference, then you'll just learn how to do it correctly. My problem is I used a different model before Instant Pot that automatically went to sealing. So then when I use these models, I have to remember to turn it to sealing. But I know too much, and when you're just starting, you don't have that. But those are some of the things. There are upgraded models that cost more money, but they don't have a lot of differences. So one of the things you see in models are, they'll say, like for the Duo, there's like an 8-in-1, and they go up to, I think, 13 different features on them. And the features, like their different settings, are not really, for me, not really a big selling point. So don't think you have to get the one with the most features because they're really just time settings on there. So for the most part, it's just if you press chicken, it's got a preset time to it. Not much else than that. And the chances are good when you're cooking chicken, your recipe will have a time on it, and you're going to use that time that's in your recipe and not the pre-programmed time on the pot. So for the most part, the buttons that I use are brown and pressure cook. So the automatic settings. So all of these extra little features are like bells and whistles and good ways to sell things, but they're not, if you're looking at buying one, don't make that a make it or break it kind of feature. And they have, the nice thing about pressure cookers now, the electric ones especially, have tons of safety features on them. So when I put the lid on, I put the lid on at an angle. There's an arrow at the front that matches up at the front of the pot, and it sings. If I'm quiet, you might hear it. And then when you twist it again, you can hear it sing another song. And so then I know it's on. If I tried to have it only halfway on and I try to bring it to pressure, it will give me an error that says lid, and it will not come to pressure. It'll just eventually, I think, turn itself off. So you can't even bring it to pressure if the lid's not on. Once the lid's on and it comes to pressure, you cannot turn this lid. You cannot open it. So there are safety features in that. So if somebody who is walking through my kitchen tried to open the pot, they would not be able to open the pot if it were under pressure. There are other features with it. So there is a release here, that's just the main release, which is the one we always want it to use. But if for some reason that got blocked or was not working, there are other release methods. It would blow out that gasket and start coming out the sides of the lid, basically, is what would happen next. So that lid will never like blow off of the top of it or anything. So those are, and I'll just say it, and I'll probably say it again, don't ever cover the top of this with a towel or anything, and you'll see the steam coming out. Both of our recipes are quick release on this tonight. When that steam comes out, that's where everybody gets a little bit scared. But you'll see it's not that bad, but just don't ever put a towel right on top of it because we don't want to block that release method. Okay. So are there any questions on models or sizing? There's also a 3-quart model that they have out now that's just great for smaller families. It is like of 1 or 2 probably. The hard part about the 3-quart model is it's difficult to find recipes for it. So I've brought along my Instant Pot Bible, Mark Weinstein's book, and this is the first cookbook I found that has all the recipes sized down to the 3-quart. So you can make smaller portions in the pressure cooker. So that is one of the things I really like about this pressure cooker book. I will talk a little bit about recipes then, as I'm talking about that book. Use your library. There are so many recipe books out there now. There are new ones, it feels like almost daily, but at least monthly. Find out what looks interesting on Amazon and then put them on hold at the library. Check them out and see whether or not they're going to be a good fit for you. Because some of them have more pot roast type recipes. Some of them will have more fancy recipes. Some of them will be more entry-level, basic, teaching you how to use it kind of thing. So just kind of explore it. I give you a few that I like. I think I list this one on the class notes. And the other site that I like a lot, website, is hippressurecooking.com. She's got very trustworthy recipes on there. So what I tell people when you get started, the best thing to do is to use recipes that are well tested by people who know what they're doing. So Instant Pot, when they first started, did zero marketing pretty much. They did promotions through bloggers and those bloggers got sales through affiliate links. They did the sales for Instant Pot and got paid by affiliate links. So that's how Instant Pot really got started. It's only been within the last year and a half that they've gone into stores. And as they've moved into stores and become more popular, it seems like there's more and more people on the internet that are just putting Instant Pot in recipe titles and not necessarily always the best tested recipes. There are some fabulous ones out there, but it's really hard when you're just starting to sort through all of that stuff. So I always recommend starting with good cookbooks and trusted websites. The other thing a lot of people do is there are a bunch of user groups on Facebook. They are massive. It's a great place to start and ask questions, but it can be super overwhelming. But you can look up things on there. There's an Instant Pot recipes only Facebook group, and then there's a users group. And they have so much information that you don't even need me after going through those. But you'll want to turn off your notifications on those because they're so active. But that's a great place to find recipes and find starting points too. Okay, so I think if there's no more questions about models and things, then I'm going to start in on the recipes. The recipes that we're doing tonight are a risotto, a butternut squash risotto, and a chocolate lava cake. So the risotto I picked because we use the browning method in the pot. So we're going to brown the onion, or the shallots in this case, and I'm going to turn it on now and let it heat up. So on this particular model, it says saute. So I'm going to hit, it was singing, it's on. Okay, I wiggled the thing. Okay, so I'm going to hit saute on it. It automatically goes through 30-minute timer. You can adjust that timer down if you really wanted, down to 5 minutes, and then it would turn itself off after 5 minutes. But I usually just leave it at 30 minutes. It won't go up higher than that. If you want to saute for longer than that, you'll have to hit the button again. And the electric pressure cookers get very hot on their saute modes. So you can adjust them to a low, medium, and high setting by pushing, in this particular model, if I push if I push the saute button again, it goes to medium or high. And right now, it's actually at low, so I'm going to hit it till it gets to more, so it's at higher. So even at low, I can feel heat in there already. So when I'm at home, I don't use high because I get distracted and I will burn everything in it. So I would only use medium or high, or medium or low when I'm at home. Tonight, you get my full attention, so I shouldn't burn it. This recipe, I kind of use it as an outline. The first step in the recipe is basically teaching you how to cook a squash and then actually puree it. I often will, and that's what I do at home, so that's why it's in the recipe. But for purposes of this class, I have a can of squash, and that's what we're using. So if you cannot, this is actually the first time I found butternut squash pureed. I normally use pumpkin in this recipe, and it works great. So you can substitute in what you have around. If you don't have pureed squash, you can use cubed butternut squash from the refrigerator section, or you can use the frozen stuff too. You do not need to change the recipe any, and if it's big chunks, that's actually okay because it will cook into a perfect puree as it goes through this, and when you stir it, they'll all stir up into smaller things. So you can use whatever you have easy access to. So that's pretty warm in there. I'm going to pour in a little bit of olive oil. One of my favorite error messages that I get from this is a burn. If you do not use oil on there, or you let if you have something that sticks to the bottom, and you need to get it to unstick before you try to bring it to pressure. So you need to clean the bottom of the bowl or scrape it off with some liquid, because if that bottom of the bowl has anything crusted on it, you will get a burn error. Instead of it coming up to pressure, it'll just like start flashing burn. It doesn't really burn. And I've never, like I said, I have pretty good success with these stainless steel inserts in that they don't, they clean up really nicely. But it's just a little scary to walk into the kitchen and have it flash and burn at you. So I'm just sauteing the shallots. So if you don't have shallots in your house, use onion. Use a red onion or a yellow onion. You can use leeks if you have those around or trying to get rid of them. So whatever you have around, use. I know we don't all carry shallots in the house. I really like them, so I do go and get them for this recipe, but I don't normally have them in my house either. And then this is a little garlic, and I have dried sage tonight because I don't have fresh sage yet. If you don't like sage, you could substitute out a different herb or seasoning that works for you. And then I'm going to add in the rice. So we're using arborio rice tonight. Have any of you ever cooked risotto in your own kitchen? So the part of why I like to do risotto, what I'm going to do is I'm just sauteing it a little bit. So risotto rice is a medium grain rice, and it is very white. It's very starchy, so it absorbs liquid really well. I'm tossing it in the oil and the shallots a bit until the outsides of it are translucent and the inside's still a little opaque. And that seems to help, I guess, the liquid absorbing the flavors of the shallots right now. And then I'm going to toss, this is a can of wine. Anyone wants the leftovers after class, take them. I can't drive home with them. So this is like 1/4 cup of wine, and I'm just going to let the rice soak it in. So if you're making risotto on the stovetop, what you do is you kind of do like this in a pot, and then you would have a simmering bowl of your stock next to it. And you slowly add like a spoonful of stock to the rice while you're stirring it. And then once that absorbs, you add more. And you do that until all of your liquid is absorbed, which can take 20 to 30 minutes of constant stirring on the stovetop. So this is a much easier way to make risotto. I used to work with a pressure cooking company that's out of Spain, and all of the employees who were from Spain, this is how they did their risotto. And that pressure cooker, because it was Spanish, had a risotto setting on it, which is actually the one setting I've only used on my pressure cookers was the risotto setting. So, and I'm just adding, this is 4 cups of chicken stock, and I'm adding it, and I'm making sure that I'm just stirring the rice in there. And then I'm going to add 1 cup, which is half a can of the butternut squash puree. And get all the good stuff. So, and I'm just going to stir that all in there. And did I add everything? You guys can check me because you have the recipes in front of you. Nobody at home ever checks me, so I put it on at an angle, like kind of cockeyed, and then it sings. Oh, it doesn't like me because I put the lid on and it's still on the brown setting. So if now I'm going to hit cancel. And then that ends. So once I move between settings, I always hit cancel in between, because it seems like if I always seems like if I go from saute and try to push pressure cook right away, it never works. So I hit cancel in between them, put the lid on, and I'm going to close it by locking it. And I'm going to make sure that the top is set to ceiling. So this bobble guy is set over to ceiling and not venting. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to press the pressure cook button. And then at this point, I check and see what number. It just happens to remember what I had it in last. If I needed a different time on there, I just press the up and down buttons to get to the right time. Once it's at the right time, I just patiently wait. That's one of the things, it's like, okay, I have the time on now, what do I do? You wait. You don't have to do anything. And you wait, and then it will beep, and then now it says on, I think. Yes? Okay, so now what it does is it is heating it up and bringing it to pressure. So this is where this is not instant. So this is your time now where it's 6 minutes to cook, but we have the time for it to come up to pressure, which can be more or less time depending on how much you have in there and how warm or cold your ingredients are. So if you have a frozen pot roast in there, it can take a while to come up to pressure versus a pot roast that you browned on the side that's been brought to room temperature a little bit before you started browning it. So that's some of the things that can play. But it'll probably take about 10 minutes to come up to pressure, and then eventually it'll beep, and then it'll start counting down the minutes. And then what it does is the Instant Pots all automatically go into a keep warm setting, which is convenient, but kind of annoying because usually we don't want it to go into a keep warm setting. What we want it to do on this particular night, we want to eat it right away, so we're going to turn off the keep warm setting. On this model, I can just press the keep warm button and it will turn the keep warm off. So I'm going to press that, and then we've turned keep warm off. Keep warm is great if you're making soups, you're going to run out of the house and doing other stuff and you want dinner ready when you come home. But it still cooks a little bit while it's on keep warm because it's still keeping it warm. So it will come off of pressure when it's on keep warm, but it will take longer to come off of pressure. So what I'm going to do while I'm putting these chocolate cakes in here, I'm going to talk to you about coming off of pressure. So your recipes have basically two choices of how to come off of pressure, and then there's a combination of the two. So the first method of coming off, first I'm going to tell you how I'm stacking these in here. So this is a double recipe of the chocolate cakes, and what I'm going to do is I am going to stack them like the kids do with their solo cups, so I can fit 2 layers into the pot. So that is nice. With this guy, I can fit 16 of them in here. You cannot fit 16 of them in the 6-quart. But they cook pretty quick, so if you did have a reason to make this many, it is you could just do them in rounds in there too. So,
what's the handle called?
Oh, that's right. So this guy, let's talk about that, because I'll forget later. So this is a Trivet, and this does not come with the Instant Pot. This is an OXO brand, and I honestly am not an advocate of buying extra Instant Pot paraphernalia, but this one, I had a gift card that I needed to use that wasn't enough for anything big, and I got it. I was like, we'll see. It's actually pretty nice because it has these handles on it that make it easy to lift, but you can replicate those handles with like a tinfoil sling. So if you have a pot that you're putting in there that you need to carry out, you can take tinfoil and roll it, fold it up in long pieces, and you can set tinfoil under your big pot, and then you do it in a cross, and then you can lift those tinfoil pieces up and pull it out without having to have a special piece of equipment.
Do that with the Trivet though, too?
You can, but sometimes those Trivet handles are hard to get at deep down in there.
With the tinfoil, would you use the Trivet still?
Yes, because you want your pots not, so this is a pot in a pot method, and you don't want them to sit directly on the bottom of the pot. So you would still use your Trivet. This can be done with that Trivet. The Trivet that comes with the Instant Pot is the same size, whether or not you get a big one or a little one. I don't know what comes with the 3-quart, to be honest, but it's very difficult to get. With that, Trivet is a little small for the 8-quart. So I said I could fit, I don't know. I had 16 of them. I don't know, this poor guy, he's not getting cooked tonight. So I'm going to put the lid on at an angle and then turn it so it's closed. they all have the same song. And then I'm gonna make sure this is at sealing. And on this model, I have to turn off keep warm when I push manual. So I'm gonna cook it on manual, and I'm gonna set it for 5 minutes. And I think it is already set to 5 minutes because that's what I did last. I think if I unplug it, it will automatically go back to 30 minutes. Some of that is based on the model that you have. So I talked too long, and now it's starting. If I want to turn off the keep warm setting on this model, I have to do it when I'm setting the time, so I have to start over. Because in order, oh, is it? Oh, it's not, that's not lit, is it?
What?
So maybe I put, so normally,
It's event.
yeah, but the keep warm is not on. So if I, well, so I must have hit it twice. So if I hit the manual button twice, then it turns off the keep warm. So that's how you do it on that one. So if I noticed the keep warm's off and it's already on, I have to hit cancel and I have to start it again on this model. So it's all a little bit different with any model that you have. So you just have to figure that out. Yes?
Do you have water in that pot?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, so you always need liquid in there, and I put it in ahead of class so that I did not forget it. So I love recipes that tell you as the very first step to put water in the pot. Do not ignore that step because that is a very easy step to forget. You will get an error. It will not come to pressure and be like, what? And what it'll do is go to keep warm or something, and then you'll have rice that's not cooked or whatever. So I was going on something. Did I leave a subject hanging, or did I finish all my thoughts? Anybody wondering where I was going? Okay. So this is a pot in a pot method. So you will do this method with cakes, cheesecakes. I do it with rice. So I will put my rice in a Pyrex dish, and I will put water in the bottom, and I will set my Pyrex dish on the trivet, and then I will put water and rice in my Pyrex dish. And then my pressure cooker is clean when it's done, and my rice is in a pot or in a serving dish already. So I use my Pyrex dishes. I have not gone out and bought any particular pans that say they're for Instant Pot. I have bought a smaller cheesecake pan that fits in the pressure cooker. That is only because I like to make cheesecakes. So if you want to try making a cheesecake, you do not need to buy a special pan for it. You can use a Pyrex dish. We're using small ball jars for this recipe. You can put a cheesecake in a ball jar. It doesn't have to come out. It doesn't have to have, you can just eat a cheesecake out of a pan. So think about what you have in your house that you can use already instead of getting sold on needing to buy special Instant Pot things. Because the pots themselves can be very affordable, but then when you get these bloggers or whoever that's trying to sell extra things, you can put a lot more money into something. So until you know that you're going to use it, I say wait and see if you have something in the house that works.
How much water did you put in?
I always put at least a cup of water in the pot. This is a bigger cooker, so sometimes I do a cup and a half in this pot. The main thing is to have enough water for your cooking time. This is only cooking for 5 minutes, so a cup of water is fine in here for 5 minutes, but I always have at least a cup of water in there. If you're cooking for a longer period of time, you would want to make sure you had at least a cup and a half in there. So what they say to do for your first recipe in your Instant Pot, and I totally agree with this, if you read your owner's manual, it will tell you your first thing should be to run a steam cycle on it, and they tell you a cup or 2 cups of water, I'm not sure what they say, but just read the manual, do that, follow their instructions, you'll do it on steam, and a bunch of steam will come out of it, and it'll run for 10 minutes or so, and you'll see how it works. You won't screw anything up because you only got water in there, and it also helps to clean some of that manufacturing goo out of it. So it's just a good thing to do. You'll get a little bit of practice. I always tell people, you boil water. First recipe, boil water. I have a friend, her first recipe, I don't know if she did the water thing or not, but her first recipe was lamb shanks. God bless her. So it worked out really well for her, but is not what I normally recommend for people. So I always tell people your first recipe should be something that you already make that you like. So if cheesecake is something that you like, great, but don't just make cheesecake because you've heard it's good to make in the pressure cooker. So things that are good to make in the pressure cooker, I love doing beans in the pressure cooker. What I do for beans, I do take dried beans. So you want to find your beans at a grocery store that has good turnover in their dried beans. So usually that's some of our ethnic markets, but not always. And you find nice quality beans. So you want ones that look clean, or not too wrinkly, and you soak those beans. I usually soak mine, and I soak them for about 8 hours or overnight or from morning to afternoon. And I soak a bunch of them at a time, and then I will freeze the soaked beans. And then they're ready for a recipe. So sometimes the recipes, even on pressure cooking, will say to call for a can of beans, and it always drives me nuts. And I know they do it because not everybody has soaked beans ready, but if you have soaked beans ready and the recipe calls for a can of beans and it's in your pressure cooker, you can say, well, this bean takes 6 minutes to cook and that recipe's cooking for 6 minutes. You're gonna be better off using soaked beans in that recipe because they won't turn into mush like a can of beans would that's already cooked. And you're saving money and you're not having a can out there. 1 cup of soaked beans, 1 cup of dried beans equals 2 cups of soaked beans, which is a can of beans. So usually a little bag of beans is about equal to 2 cans of beans. And when I get ready to cook them, if I'm not just throwing them into a soup, what I do is I put the soaked beans in there, and then I will add a carrot and onion and garlic and whatever I have around, celery, peppers, if I have some peppers. I usually have green peppers that we didn't eat in time, and they go in the freezer, and then I use them for beans. And then I cook them, like black beans will cook for 3 minutes in the pressure cooker, and you cover them with water. And then you cook them, black beans will cook for like 3 minutes. Any longer and you end up with more mushy stuff, which can be good depending on your recipe. A bigger white cannellini bean might be up to 9 minutes or 12 minutes. But if you're cooking beans on the stovetop normally, those can take hours sometimes to cook properly. But they taste fabulous cooked like that, and it's so much better than a can of beans, and you're like in a good place. But if you don't have time to soak beans and you're planning on doing it, there are ways to do a quick soak with the pressure cooker, basically by cooking them for a minute and then draining them, and then you call those soaked. So there's ways to do it quickly too. Yes?
How does pasta?
Yes, so you can cook pasta in the pressure cooker. I do it periodically when I'm in a pinch. My kids don't like it. It absorbs all the liquid in there, and it ends up being more like a baked pasta, and my kids just don't like it, so I don't do it very often. I love it. It's super easy, but I can't convince them. You can't do, yeah, so milk-based things are very difficult in pressure cooker. I have found a few good recipes for milk-based. Like I have found a good rice pudding that works, but macaroni and cheese is more difficult. If you find recipes that work, they'll start with a base with chicken broth usually, and then you add in the cheese at the end, and there's not really that whole white sauce with it. So anything that is with milk in there, and the milk at pressure ends up curdling. So just, that would not be my starter recipe. Sorry. But flans work really well in there, and coconut milk is fine, and evaporated milk is fine. So, and I don't know why flans work very well, but they do. And the Did we talk about chicken stock yet? We did not talk about chicken stock. So we use chicken stock in this recipe. If I were at home, I would use homemade chicken stock. So what I do, I think this is the best use of a pressure cooker, is making your own stocks. And I always talk about chicken stock, but you can do this with vegetables too. So for chicken stock though, I take the bones from a roasted chicken. You can also do this with chicken thighs and kind of roast them or brown them in there. And I put the bones that are picked clean of most of the meat of the carcass in there, and then add the same thing as the beans pretty much, but I don't put garlic with this. An onion, celery, carrot, bay leaf, peppercorns, a splash of apple cider vinegar, because that apple cider vinegar helps pull the good stuff out of the bones. And I cover it up with water. And pretty much I put whatever, like when I am cooking, if I have ends of my vegetables, like the asparagus that I don't want to eat but are perfectly good, I'll put them in a bag in the freezer and keep them for stock. And when that bag's full, then I'll just make stock out of it. But I cover that with water and then cook it for an hour under pressure for an hour, and then let the pressure release naturally. And then you have chicken stock. You drain off all of the solids, let it cool in the fridge overnight or so, and in the morning you scrape off the fat, and you will have this. It'll be thick, depending on, it can be thick like jelly almost. Sometimes I can put a spoon on it and it won't sink in. That's from all the good stuff from the bones. It kind of depends on the chicken that you started with though, how much liquid you have in there. But anyway, even if it doesn't hold a spoon on it, that stock is like what Grandma always gave you when you were sick. They call it bone broth. I think it's the trendy term for it now, but I refuse. It's chicken stock to me, like what Grandma made, and it's so good for you. So, and you can freeze it. You can freeze it in ice cube trays and then put those cubes in a baggie in the fridge and have them when you need them, or you can freeze it in 1 or 2 cup sizes, whatever you think you're going to use. So 2 cups is the same as a can. So that's how I do it. And then you have it ready to go. You have homemade stuff. You're making something out of something you would have thrown away otherwise, and it's so good for you. Tastes so good. First time I made chicken stock myself, I did it in my crock pot, and I'm like, I'm just throwing, it's bones, right? So I didn't even wash the carrot. You gotta wash the carrot. I learned that the hard way. That stuff, it was so gross. What I had started talking about that I couldn't remember was how we release the pressure on these. So this is coming up to pressure, and it's got a little bit of steam coming out, and if everything goes right, the steam will suddenly stop, and then it will eventually get the number back on the front and start counting down. So if this steam keeps going, then I know, or if it gets louder or more, then I know that I don't have that seal in there correctly, or I have a clogged valve, possibly. Those are usually the first 2 things to look for. Sometimes, you wiggle that top a little, and that'll get it to where it goes. This guy's counting down right now. Is it? It's off. Okay. So we have 2 ways of releasing pressure on the pressure cooker. So the first way is a quick release, which means you flip this top valve over to venting, and the steam comes out. So that's quick. And the second way is a natural release or a slow release, depends on the book. So a natural release is letting it sit like this, and eventually the pressure will come down on its own. So the pressure's still on. I cannot open this lid. This guy quieted it down, and now the button went up, and it should start counting down pretty soon. I can't open this lid. I know the pressure's on. My husband walks in the room and tries to open it to see what's happening. He can't do it. So if I want to flip this to venting, well, I do want to flip this to venting because this recipe says a quick release. So I'm going to flip it to venting. This is the part that nobody likes, but really isn't that bad. If you really don't want to stick your hand in there, you can use a spoon. But you just flip it to venting, and it kind of points back. In my house, You don't want to do this under a cabinet because that's going to stick right in the corner of your cabinet. In my house, I set it by a window and try to open the window if it would ever get warm enough. You can, if you're able to, in your kitchen, put it under a vent, like a hood, and run it, but don't move it around. Like, start it there. Don't move it around while it's under pressure, please. So if you are able to start it under the vent, then turn the vent on before you turn that off. If this steam bothers you, what I always tell people is take a towel and cover the top of the, like hold it above 12 inches or so and catch that steam, and then it won't be on your wall or wherever. Do not put the towel directly on top of that vent because we do not want to block that vent. So this can take some time. So for this recipe it's not too bad, but if you have a big roast in there and you're trying to do this quick release, normally a pot roast will have a natural release, and that natural release on a pot roast can take 25 minutes sometimes. We don't always have time for that, so in that case you would do, if you needed it open sooner, I would recommend doing a 10-minute release naturally. And after that 10 minutes is up, then start kind of wiggling this a little bit and slowly letting that pressure out, and then you can flip it to release the rest of the way. So that'll still get you the advantage of the natural release and the advantage of the quick release. So the advantage of the natural release is it's still cooking during that time. So when your recipe says a natural release, it's counting on the pot cooking because it's still hot and under pressure during that. So you can't just skip that process. The other advantage of natural release is it lets some of those molecules that are in the food settle down in the pot, so you don't have all those particles coming up out of the vent and possibly clogging. That's what will clog that vent. If you do a quick release on beans or something, you can do applesauce in here. It just takes a couple minutes to cook apples in there, but they're really super foamy, so you have to do a natural release on those or you'll have so much. I tried doing oatmeal. I wanted my oatmeal the other day, and I had oatmeal coming out of there. So, actual oatmeal. I'm like, wow, that's pretty great. So now it's down. There is that visual indicator on the top. They're super hard to see. This one's red, and it actually bounces up above the level of the pot. This one is silver, and when it's up, it only comes to the top of the pot. So it's something that you learn how to read, and you'll learn it on your particular model. So I did that super slick. There's a lot of steam in the top of the lid, and I was turning it and I spilled it all over. But if you're paying attention, you can take that lid, hold it like this, and then set it on the side. This model does not have this feature, but the rest of them, I think, do. And then, in theory, all that liquid collects into this. There's a gutter around the lip of the pot. In your pot, there's this little plastic thing that comes in most of the boxes with the Instant Pots, and it snaps on the back. There's a little hole in that gutter, and it snaps on back there. You try to turn it around. I've had a lot of people that have accidentally thrown that away when they got the box. I don't know how to replace them. I've accidentally thrown one away. So this is a little liquidy in here, but not too bad. If it was too liquidy, you could give it another minute, or you could turn it to simmer, or I don't know what it says. It's brown on this model. You could turn it to that and simmer it. And in this case, it's not that liquidy. I can see the rice on the top. If I just put the lid back on, it will continue cooking. So I can just set the lid back on. It's still got all that heat in there, and it'll get some residual cooking time while we're waiting for this guy. This is also a good point if you wanted to make this into a more full meal. If you had some cooked chicken, like shredded chicken, or some sausage or something that's cooked, you could add that in there. You can add vegetables in there, so frozen peas or little fresh peas. You can cut up like thin asparagus or chopped up broccoli in there, and just toss it in and close the lid, and it will cook enough to, it'll warm up and you'll have like the whole thing. I also have Parmesan. I did not have the, what do I call for? Asiago. I didn't have Asiago, I have Parmesan. So if you could do cheddar cheese and broccoli and have the whole like broccoli cheddar thing going on in a healthy way. So I'm going to put the cheese in there, stir that up. I have a little bit of butter in there just to give it a little extra richness, but that's not totally necessary. Still tastes good without it. Is he counting down now?
2 minutes.
Good boy. Okay. So this cake recipe, a little bit about it. I used like really fancy chocolate chips from Costco. So it's super easy to do at home. So there's really nothing fancy in here. I did not submit you guys to the coffee in it, so you will not be up all night due to me. If you add the coffee granules to it, you will end up with like a even richer flavor of chocolate, but you'll find it's pretty good with just like the stuff you have around the house. So, and what I normally do is, it says natural release on there. I normally give it a couple minutes release and then open it up. Mostly because none of us in this class like to wait for that long. If you, and it's cooked fine. So if you release it earlier or just do a quick release on it, right away, you'll end up with a super gooey inside. So if you like it that way, then you can adjust it to that. If you want it a little gooey, like we're probably going to have it, I would do a 2 to 3 minute natural release and then a quick release. So that's your third release method, is when you do a natural release followed by the quick release. So let's talk a little bit about the rest of the things while we're waiting for him to finish. So this guy comes with your Instant Pot. Most pressure cookers have some sort of trivet that come with them. You use this trivet so when you're doing pot and pot stuff, so your pot isn't sitting right on the bottom of the Instant Pot. Does that make sense? So he's beeping now? Mm-hmm. So he's done. So we're going to give him a couple more minutes while I talk so that they're not too gooey for you. You can use any trivet that you have around the house. So if you have, I have a steamer basket that's silicone, and I use that all the time too. This is good also. You can set eggs right on it. You don't need to buy a special egg trivet. Any trivet you have, you can put eggs on it. Don't want to put eggs right on the bottom of the pot. I had somebody tell me, well, when my son cooks eggs, they come out brown. And I'm like, well, are they brown eggs? She's like, no, the inside are brown. So turns out he was cooking the eggs on the bottom of the pot. Like they were burnt, like they were burning. So more than just hard boiling eggs. Did we talk about hard boiling eggs? Sorry, I'm getting mixed up between the two classes. So eggs are good to do in the pressure cooker. This is one thing that I don't think saves much time, but they are very easy to peel. So I like to do, I have chickens at my house. I can put fresh eggs in here from the chickens, and my kids are able to peel them. So to me, that's a major advantage, but I don't think it saves a lot of time. So most people, when you do eggs in the pressure cooker, you want to know how much water you put in it, and you want to know the temperature of the water. So always just keep everything the same, because those little eggs cook so quickly, and we all have a very specific way we like our eggs cooked. So if you like a medium egg and you figure out how to get that just perfect, you want to make sure you have all of those variables the same, so then you can replicate it every time, because they're so tiny. Like if you put hot water in here versus cold water, that'll affect it that much. So what I do is a cup of cold water, and then my eggs, again, you want to have the same size eggs even. So eggs, and then 6 minutes under pressure. And then when that 6 minutes is done, you do 6 minutes of a natural release. And then you get the pressure off the rest of the way with a quick release. And then you put them into cold water, and then they say 6 minutes on the cold water, but I just leave them in the cold water until they're cooled, usually. And that gives me an egg that's just hard-boiled. Like sometimes it's medium if the egg is a little larger than a large egg. And if you like your egg cooked more, you can do 7 minutes. But they call that the 666 method or 777 method. And that, I did talk about the Facebook groups, right? So the Facebook groups are a great place to learn all about eggs too. So the rest of the stuff that comes with your pot, we talked about the little plastic guy on the back. Comes with 2 awesome spoons and this amazing rice cup. So I have only kept these because I show them to classes. This rice cup is, to me, like the most confusing thing in the world. They call it a cup. I think Instant Pot has a recipe that works with this cup, but this cup is not a cup. It is 6 ounces. It has a half mark and a 3/4 mark. It makes it look like it's a cup. Just find a good rice recipe using one of those Facebook blogs or one of the recipe books that are out there and follow that recipe for rice, because that is not how most of us make rice. Why they can't, I don't know. But so I just like to warn people about that because that can be very frustrating. And those are the things that come with them. Any questions about what you guys like to cook?
What's the plastic thing on the back too?
So the plastic thing on the back is a liquid catcher, particularly if you are steaming. So if you do the steam method, there will be more liquid that comes out of this, or slow cooking. So if you use this as a slow cooker, you want your top stop part set to venting when you use it as a slow cooker. I don't know, it's not called a slow cooker. I don't know, yeah, it is. And you'll have more liquid come out. And then you want that on there, or you'll have a puddle. Okay, so we're gonna let the rest of this pressure off of here. And we're gonna see what happens. So what are some of your favorite things that you guys have made in the cookers? And yes.
I've got one that actually does yogurt.
Okay.
I have to still use a thermometer.
Yes.
It takes so much less time than when I used to do it in my crock pot.
Oh, you were doing the, okay.
Yeah, we tried doing the homemade, and so we're
Yes.
buying it all the time, and then we'll use that for smoothies or just eating it.
Yes.
So we have to use it as sour cream.
Yes.
So.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to learn how to make yogurt, this functions more like a yogurt maker. It's not like you just put milk in it and then press the yogurt button and yogurt magically comes out of it. You still have to heat the yogurt and then cool it down and add yogurt starter. And then you use this as a water bath for the milk in jars or whatever you have. I do make my own yogurt, but I have a yogurt maker that won't die, so I still use it. I've made yogurt in here once or twice just to see how, just to know the process, but it's not any different than a yogurt maker. They tell you can heat it up in here, but then you still have to then you would have to clean the bowl to put the yogurt back into it when it's in the jars for the water bath part of it. And I'm always like, well. So see, this can take some time to do this natural release. You can try, if you're getting really impatient and you really need the kids to eat, you could try to put cold, wet washcloths or dish towels on the top to help speed it along, but I mean, I've tried it because I've had those nights. It doesn't really help a whole lot. So have some carrots ready for them, I guess. Okay. Not another carrot, Mom. Yes.
If you're cooking a chicken or roast in there, you need to brown it first. So you would use your brown button to brown it first and then cook it.
Yeah. Sometimes I do my roast without browning it. I have heard, and I've heard in several sources, the higher pressure covers when you brown, you're creating a reaction on the crust of the meat that adds that certain flavor in there. The pressure cooking at that high temperature kind of does that also, but I don't know that that occurs at the pressures of these electric pressure cookers. So yes, if you are browning a cut of meat, you would do it on the brown setting, just like we did with the onions. Sometimes I skip that step and it still turns out fine. But if you're doing a chicken in here, you will want to brown it because that chicken will not get browned in the pressure cooker. So you'll end up with a very pale chicken. So I don't do a whole chicken in the pressure cooker, but you can do chicken breasts very well. Like, it's great for shredded meats. So you can do frozen chicken breasts. You don't need to brown those either. And they will cook, like even if you do frozen, you add a couple minutes. So you do those maybe for 9 minutes or so with some liquid. And then they are great. They shred really nicely. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yeah, so you still do that brown setting, like for a pot roast. Then add your liquids and turn off the brown and then go to the pressure cooking. Yeah, so it's all in one pot, which is really nice. It's different from, these are hot. I just have fingers that don't notice very much. And I'm trying to be quick. So they puff up a little and then they kind of go back down. So when they're setting on each other, the ones below kind of have the shape of the cup at top of them, but not really that bad. Depends on how much you are particular. So, is Patty still here? Okay, yes, go for it.
I know you said that there's a lot of factors that are dependent upon how long it comes up to pressure.
Yes.
But that's kind of like, I've used mine a few times, and that's the problem I have. Like, I never know from when I start to when dinner's going to be, and so we kind of have a rush. Is there any, like, rule of thumb, or how long do you allow for that to
I say find a cookbook that actually addresses that.
Okay, yeah.
So he's got in here, he will say, well, he does not address it, so shame on him.
Because I've been the one with the like the cold towels on the top.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's 7 o'clock. My kids need to go to bed.
Yeah, so this one says super easy and quick release. So quick release things will go quicker. It's partially experience. I would look for a cookbook that had that information in it, so that, especially to start, and then once you get a feel for those recipes that are like that, then you'll know better.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Trial and error.
yeah. So what were you cooking particularly?
That night it was a butter chicken recipe, and it was butter chicken. And it just took a long time to come up. It took a long time to come down. And it was delicious, but it's just so hard.
Wasn't worth it.
When I don't know when to start cooking versus when we're going to actually.
Well, what I would say is if you have the time for it, I would start earlier and then let it go to keep warm.
That's a good idea too.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I manage things. Like if I am able to do it at 3 in the afternoon and have it go to keep warm, then I know it's going to be ready at 6 when we eat. And if you have not everybody has that flexibility, so. But even a little bit earlier is better than. How many do we have in here?
We have about 30 people in our counted them, so we need all these bowls.
Okay, perfect. So I sprayed these cups beforehand so they come out easily, but they are a little bit of a pain in the butt to wash. That's probably the worst part of this recipe, is washing dishes. I mean, nothing new there, right?
Does it not work as well if you don't spray them?
Oh, then they'll really be hard to clean. Yeah. You could butter them if you don't use spray. That's my one shortcut. I can't get rid of the spray in the house.
Thank you.
We'll probably have a few extras, so I'm trying to make them even.
We could get such tiny ones then.
So Target has them. I don't know if you have Farm and Fleet, even Walmart even carries them. Yeah.
What's the best way to store it when it's not being used? Like, I mean, obviously on the counter.
Yes.
Like the lid.
We didn't talk about that. So the silicone seal has a tendency to attract odors to it. It is, did we talk about it? No, we didn't. So that can be really annoying to people. It does not seem to carry flavor. Like, I don't notice that it carries flavor, but if you make chicken stock, it will smell like chicken stock. So I always tell people, wash it right away. You can put that silicone seal in the top rack of your dishwasher too to wash it. There are lots of tricks online trying to get the smell out of it. I haven't found that any of them really work. But what I do is wash it right away, and then when I store it with the lid up.
Upside down.
Yes, so not closed.
That's what I heard.
Yes. You just let it air out that way. I don't think it's good to have that seal like closed all the time. And plus,
You get stuff going on if you take
yeah, it just lets it air out more. So that's what I do.
That's my kids. It was
I did one of these classes and somebody told me they make popcorn in their Instant Pot. So I went home and looked it up, and it's just using the browning method. You don't put the lid on it. I found a regular, like a 10-inch lid that fits on there, and you just melt the butter in it, follow the YouTube video, and my 12-year-old son will make popcorn in there now. It's not under pressure. It's just using it as a stove. Like if your stove ever stopped working, an Instant Pot, you could do a lot with it. But I was like, you're making popcorn under pressure? What? No, not under pressure.
Can you use it as a steamer without
Yes.
pressure? How would you do that?
So you just set it to the steam setting, and then I think you still set that to the pressure or to the close. The valve would be closed in that case.
It's not venting?
I don't think so.
Because otherwise the pressure would build up.
It self-vents it. Yeah. So when it's on the steam setting, you still have it set to that. When you are doing it as a slow cooker, that's when you have it. That's when you have it set at the steam setting. And it's good for cooking your vegetables in there. It's not much quicker than the microwave, but it's a lot better than stovetop because you're using less liquid than you would on the stovetop. So your nutrients stay in the vegetables and in that small amount of steam.
And if you're cooking beans in there, can you use the button that says beans, or you have to put in the time?
Well, let's press it and see what time it says there. So it has a... So if I press bean, where is he? I mean, you can use it, but first off, you have to find it. Is there a bean setting on that one?
No.
No. So this one has bean, but it has bean at 35 minutes and at 40 minutes and at 25 minutes. So if I keep pressing it, it has different times on it. But
Are they
That's
doing
too
it
much
from-
time.
Are they doing it from like,
So
not
yeah, so some people don't,
water and run?
yes, so some people don't even soak their beans before, even a quick soak before they cook them, which I don't recommend. They won't taste that good. And then you would cook them at 35 minutes or so, maybe.
Refried beans.
Yeah.
And it, I mean, because they're supposed to be.
They're supposed to be like that, but that's still, I mean, that's so much time.
The garbanzo beans takes about 25 minutes.
Yeah, if they're not soaked, they're soaked. Yeah, I just did some the other day. Yeah, they're a little bit longer than, yeah,
So I have one question. So if I'm putting some beans in there.
overnight.
Soul food, well, I think soul food. Some ham hocks.
Yes, oh, so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
It will still be that same time, or will I need to add more time?
So with the ham hock, I might do that with unsoaked beans because the ham hock, you want a good cooking time on that. Oh, wait, I must have turned it back on. Yeah, I know. Ha, got ahead of it. So when I do like a bean and ham stew. So normally I'll cook that ham hock with like water and an onion or whatever to make the stock, and then I add the beans in at the end. And then pull off all the meat and add, like when I pull off all the meat, that's when I add the beans to it. But it's such a good soup. Yeah. And it takes so much less time than being on the stovetop for the whole day. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I've got a Saute brand, that's just what I happen to, so the Instant Pot, and mine comes with like a manual with like a general guide of what, how long to cook for beans or rice or something like that. And so like mine takes like 7 minutes for soaked
Yes.
beans. So, whatever you get, I
Yes.
check that user guide, it might have some sort of recommendation.
They don't have a ton of, so the downside to Instant Pot, which I think is why part of the reason these classes are so popular, is they have very minimal instructions in their instruction book. The hip pressure cooking, she's got great timetables, almost too detailed, but every kind of bean she has a time for. She has a time for whether or not they're soaked. She has a time for if they're, she has times for all different kinds of rices, all different kinds of grains, all different kinds of meats. If the meats are frozen, she has another table to add time to it for frozen meats. Like, she's so detailed. That's hip pressure cooking. Hip, yep. It's Laura Pam, yes. It's in the class notes, too.
Is she a blogger?
Yeah, she's got a blog, but she's got cookbooks out, too. Yeah, she's like one of the ones that was around before Instant Pot, so she's been around a long time. We have lots of extra cake, so if anybody wants more. And some risotto, so if you want more.
Excuse me?
Yes?
Is it safe to use any dishes in there, like glass?
So I always say if it's safe in your oven, it should be safe in here.
Oh.
So if it can go in your oven, then like my Pyrex can go in my oven, so
That's really good, so I'm not going to be shy.
thank you. My 10-year-old asked for me to bring home some cake, but normally I don't bring any home, so I said, I'm making no promises, babe.
I'm more of those bagels of rice that you just put in the microwave, so this is so much better.
I had a woman at one of my classes recently tell me she was, I don't know how old she was, but she told me her age and she said, I've never had risotto before in my life. And I'm like, it just was like so special. So yeah, I mean, this is not hard. So I think this is pretty much all I have for my presentation. So if anybody wants the leftover wine, but otherwise, thank you so much for coming out tonight. I will be, if you have more questions, I'm here to answer them, and please help yourselves. So.